Hey guys, welcome back to our restoration project. Today another simple and fun video. We're going to install our gauges. So we're at a point in the project now where we really need to get our gauges installed. I'm getting ready to install the gas tank and close up the trunk area. So now is really a good time to get these gauges installed and do all the work we need to do up under the dash from the back side of these gauges. We've got clamps we need to put into place, a little tight working in there, hold down nuts. Also our odometer cable, we'll put that in place. So we have pretty much everything here with the exception of our clock, which we're still patiently waiting from North Hollywood Speedometer. Hopefully by the end of this video we'll have it received. We can put it back together, show you how that works, and get that one installed and cut up also. So basically real easy to install these. So just mainly concentrating on the wiring and the connections, make sure we have good ground. All our light bulbs are working. We'll spend a little bit of time up under the dashboard looking at the wiring just to make sure we have everything the way it was when I took it out of there. So let's take them outside, get them installed, and see what they look like. So starting with our trip odometer cable, this one was completely frozen. So what I did is I soaked it in a derusting agent, managed to free up this spring here that locks in to the back side of this stay right here. So what happens is this goes into the dash. It has a spacer on top of that. This locks it into position behind the dash. We have a washer on the front side of the dash, and then this will be our set nut on there, and then our knob here, this will slide over this flat spot, and it just has a set screw right here. Tighten that down, and that should hold it in place. So best I can figure out by playing with it, the best sense I can make of this spring in here is that it allows only for clockwise rotation, not counterclockwise. This will only go forward, not backwards. And a little petroleum grease on that spring is probably not a bad idea. Next, let's put the speedometer in while we got a little room in there to play with that cable. And this is going to be our bracket. So here's kind of a broad view of our wiring all cleaned up. So let's just go through this one at a time. We'll try and explain what these wires are as we're plugging in. So our speedometer has got this white with green, and this is going to be your parking light, which is the bottom center green light on the bottom of your speedometer. That guy right in there. And then the other two light sockets are going to be from your main lighting harness, which is going to be your black and blue. You can see this is all the black and blues going into all the different gauges. So I've got everything labeled here, and I'm going to leave those labels on there until the car is up and running and we've done all our troubleshooting. That way I can easily trace something down if it's incorrect. While we got this up, let's look at the schematic that I got from Sierra Madre. Probably make better sense of everything that's going on here. So here's our wiring schematic from Sierra Madre. So this is what this is going to cover. Early 911 and 911S. You could probably pause this and make some sense of it. I'll also put a photograph in here which you can blow up and trace things down. But basically here's where we're working. Working in the gauges there. And everything's really spelled out quite easily. So you can see our parking light, the green and white there, and then how everything routes back to our fuse block. So a little bit confusing at a glance, but if you look at it long enough, it'll start to make sense. And then speedometer cable, you will definitely feel that seat. Make sure that guy is totally in there. Let's take a look at it. So we got our green and white wire into the parking lights, dash light, and it's a shared ground with the clock over here, which is going to be real tight. Also, I need to tie this back a little bit too close to our windshield wiper motor. Alright, so that takes care of our speedometer, and then our clock, which I wish we had. That's just 3 wires. We got one black and blue. It's going to be our bulb socket. A brown, which is going to be our ground. And then our black wire is going to be our power. And this one's just got 2 small hold down brackets, 2 nuts. Alright, let's take a look at our gas gauge wiring. So this is pretty much everything's going to plug into that. Top right, that's going to be our bulb. Gas left, that'll be the dash light. This will be your warning light. And other locations. Let me just go ahead and plug that in. We'll see if we get the camera in there and see if all this makes sense. Alright, so we're pretty tight getting this camera in there, but it's about as much as I can make sense of it with the labeling that I had coming off there, so hopefully that's right. Next, let's do our temperature gauge. A whole bunch of plug-ins on this one. All kinds of stuff going in there, and this is our clamp. Well, I think I just need to plug it all in and then we'll have a look at it. Probably the best we're going to be able to do with that. And that's our clamp configuration. Well, I tell you, as much as I'm impressed with all things German, I'm definitely not very impressed with the VDO bulb sockets. These ones are nice and tough, but these ones here are really rickety. All you got to do is look at them and they fall apart. Alright, let's see if we can get our camera in there a little bit. Let's see if we can get some of the wires sorted out. So, as best I can tell, that's going to be the locations for those colors. Some of my labeling I was questioning, but I'm just going to go ahead and plug it in as I labeled it anyways. And then while we're down here, let's look at the tachometer wire set. It's basically everything tachometer. This one's actually pretty simple and very easy to get to everything. Let's go ahead and plug it in and see what she looks like. Where's the best? Yeah. So there's our clamp positions, and those you got to fool with a little bit. Really, they need to be dead flat against the body there. They could easily be up on a corner or the edge. So a little bit of fooling around just to make sure they're seated. Alright, there it is. So I'm pretty confident on the bottom wiring being in correct location. I had good photographs of this when I took it apart. In spite of my labeling, I'm questioning. The only thing I might be off here would be the left and right turn signal at the top there. But it's easy enough to switch. But other than that, I think that's going to work. Alright, so we are looking good now. So it's just a waiting game until our clock shows up. So we'll just have to pause here until she arrives. We'll put her back together and finish her up. Alright guys, so we finally got our clock back and we are looking good here. So I've got everything laid out and ready to go. So what the issue was when I sent this off to North Hollywood Speedometer, I was having some issues with my electroplating, and by the time I got to their end, we had some blistering with the zinc electroplating. And I couldn't get it resolved on my end quick enough, so they had to send it out. And between that and issues with the pandemic, it just took that long to get it back. But it's looking really good. Let's take an up-close look and see how they did. So, real beautiful job pressing everything back together. It's all nice and clean, nice and bright silver on the inside. Should help out our bulb situation. And then their electroplating looks real nice, so won't have any issues with that. And it's been serviced according to whatever they do to service these clocks. They tested it when it first came in and it did work. However, I feel a lot more confident now that they've spent some time with it and put it all back together for us. So let's go ahead and finish up the trim package on this and get it installed. So first let's have a look at our lens here and see how that cleaned up. So this is our original lens. It's plastic, and what I did to restore this, just use a mild rubbing compound on both sides with a microfiber rag, and finished it up with some Griot's correcting cream, and that thing polished right back like it's brand new. No yellowing, no spider webbing or cracking in there. So that's in virtually perfect condition there. And then I repainted the needle using some Tester's model paint. And what colors I'm using there, I'm using a flat red and a fluorescent orange, 50-50 blend on that, and just brushed out that needle. And that looks about right where we want to be. And then a quick look at our pointer just to see how that works with our minute hands, and everything is turned. So what we have is a shaft with a slotted gear in the back there, and that grabs hold of that needle. And we have a spring on this front side here that keeps tension on it, and with enough pressure then you're able to turn the needle. And then when you want to move the minute hand there, we just push on the knob, which is spring loaded, and then that slotted gear engages, and that's what turns the minute hand. So that'll make more sense when we start putting it together. You'll see exactly how that works. Just doing kind of a dry run here. Seem to have run into another problem with this. So it looks like as I assemble this unit here, as it's supposed to engage down into the long minute hand, what's happening now is it's actually engaging it already, and it shouldn't be. So that tells me that our long second hand is not seated far enough down into the clock. It actually should be closer to the shorthand. There's about 1/8 of an inch space in there that I don't think should be in there. So I'm going to call these guys on Monday and see if we can't get this resolved. I may have to send it back in there and have them press that down in there. Okay guys, well it's been quite a journey with our clock here over the past several months. All these problems we've encountered, really, none of these would have existed had I not just sent the clock in complete and had these guys do a complete restoration on it from their end. So all the problems we've encountered here really is because I wanted to do half of it here and wanted them to do the other half at their shop. And in the beginning, Ralph really was trying to talk me out of it. He said he's had problems with that before, didn't want to do it, and for these kind of reasons. So nothing away from North Hollywood Speedometer. Beautiful job putting this back together for us. And they also put a new trim ring on there, real nice quality, high quality chrome on there, and beautiful job sealing that up on the back edge there. Look at the way they rolled that in there. Okay, so getting ready to put this back in the car, I just want to say, in fairness to North Hollywood Speedometer, this never would have left the shop with the condition we had and the reason we had to sand it back in. They would have caught that, putting it all back together through assembly, and you know, these are the kind of things that happen when you don't do it the way the professionals want you to do it. So I'm going to highly recommend North Hollywood Speedometer. They took really good care of us, did a beautiful job on this clock. It's been bench tested for 72 hours and shipping it back to us in a real nice, safe container. So I think this is going to work out fine for us. Let's go ahead and put it in and see what she looks like. Putting on a gasket. And then a clean look at the back side here. So we got our bulb's going to go in here. Our black 12 volt power is going to go here, and our brown ground is going to plug in here. Okay, so I got one side put in, but the side over here by our speedometer, this one's going to be real difficult. See, I can barely even see the gauge, let alone feed my hands in there around the threads. So what I'm doing to feed the bracket in there is using a long piece of wire. Try and dribble it on there with some masking tape and then pull it, and that should leave the bracket in place. And I try and do the same thing with the nut. Let me wrestle with that. I'll move the camera out of the way and see if we can make that work. Alright, well, we got that one in there. I'm going to tell you, really tight. If you got big hands, that's pretty much going to be impossible. You may have to employ somebody with smaller hands to get that in there. But she's hooked up, she's nice and tight and straight. So that is going to be the correct wiring and hookup for the clock. And then also, while you're putting your gauges in, or particularly the clock, holding onto those nuts is going to be difficult in some of these locations, and you're going to be dropping them quite frequently. So what I'm doing here is just wadding up some damp paper towel, and if I drop a nut, the paper towel will catch it and hold it for me. Without that paper towel, some of those nuts could end up down inside your steering column and would be impossible to retrieve them. Okay, so since we've had several months in the making of this video, I've had plenty of time to sort out all the wiring under the dash, troubleshoot everything, making sure all my lights work, all the wiring is in the correct locations, and actually verify everything. So what we can do now, let's just take a quick look and see exactly how everything should be. And then as soon as it gets dark, we'll come out here, turn the booth lights off, we'll turn the lights on the dash, and you can see what everything looks like lit up at night. Starting with our fuel gauge here in the corner, that's going to be the correct wires and locations for everything connected there. And then our temperature gauge, a lot of plug-ins there. Our tachometer. And speedometer. And clock that you can't see way back in there. Next, we're going to hook up the battery and run this clock for a few hours. As soon as it gets dark, we'll come out here and see what the lights look like at night. Okay, so we have dark conditions outside the booth right now, and it doesn't look like the night vision on my camera is going to work all so great, although we'll take a look at it anyways and see if we can get something to go of it. I don't have infrared on this, and the lights are really dim to work with my iPhone here. But let's take a look with the lights on. Then we'll turn them off and see what they look like with the lights off. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the dash light switch. You can see things light up now inside our clock there. Nice and bright, in our speedometer and tachometer, nice and bright in there. Also our temperature gauge is nicely illuminated, although I'm getting some glare in there. And also you can see some lights squeezing through on our gas tank gauge there. And a better shot at our temperature gauge. And then our high beams will have a dark blue light on the bottom of our tachometer, although in this light it's hard to see it. With the lights out, you can see it a little bit better down there with the lights out. So it does work, it's just really dark. Do the best we can here with our camera, just coming across the dashboard in the dark. So not a whole lot of light coming out of these guys, but from the driver's seat without this camera, definitely bright enough to see what you're doing and where you're going. And then next, when we turn the ignition key on, we're going to get a white light, which is our handbrake. Turns off when we set it down. Back on when we set the brake. The red light is going to be tied to your alternator. When we have enough current flowing through the alternator or enough charge into the system, it will trip the voltage regulator and this should shut off. So if this light doesn't come off, then that means your alternator is not putting out enough voltage, and that would be your warning light there. Also, when we turn our dash lights on, our green light then would go off. Now we put our driving lights back on. It's back on. Back over here. Headlights on. It goes back out. And then we have left and right turn signals. Nice and bright there. And then the green light here, this is ignition. So when I turn the ignition off, it'll come off. Turn the ignition on. It basically is an indication that we have power to the system. Okay, so we're starting to get a real finished look here on our dashboard. We just got one more piece to finish. That's going to be our radio, and we'll go through that on our next video, step by step, get it installed, and hopefully produce some sound. Well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.